No one hires a lawyer to buy a tin of milk from a shop or even to buy a car. But once you decide to acquire property, you are immediately advised to hire a lawyer. So the reason should be obvious to everyone. Of course, there are more risks involved in property acquisition. But even beyond the risks, the legal processes involved also requires that a lawyer is involved in the property acquisition process or in a property transaction. So according to the law, the property transaction should be documented. So the transfer of ownership from the seller or the owner to the buyer should be in writing and both parties should sign. That is mandated by the law. The law further says that the writing, that's called the conveyance document or the indenture as we all know it, should be written by a legal practitioner or a lawyer. And so it makes lawyers important in the property acquisition process. So if you look at section 33 of the Lands Act, it says that the conveyance should be prepared by a legal practitioner. So for emphasis, hiring a lawyer for the entire property acquisition process is not mandatory. What is mandatory is that the conveyance document should be written by a lawyer and both parties should sign. So like in every transaction, there are often two parties. The same for property transactions. There is the buyer and the seller. There are two parties and each can hire their legal representative. And so often the seller owes they have the responsibility to make the proposal. So usually they will hire a lawyer to write the conveyance document because they have to make the proposal for the buyer to accept. So usually they will take the responsibility to hire a lawyer to write the documents, that's the conveyance documents for the buyer to agree. And it makes sense because at the end of the day, they are benefiting financially from the transaction. And so they have the means and motivation to hire a lawyer to do so. So if the seller takes that responsibility of hiring a lawyer to take care of what is legally mandated, that is a lawyer writing the document, the conveyance document, then why then are you a buyer when you are going to acquire property? Why then are you advised to hire a lawyer? So as I said from the beginning, there are risks involved in property acquisition, more so in Ghana. And so your lawyer from the beginning will conduct due diligence to verify the ownership and the legitimacy of the property and also ensure that there are no litigation issues surrounding the land or property. Your lawyer will then review and peruse the documents written by the seller's lawyer, the agreements, that's the conveyance document, to ensure that you have a good deal as a buyer and also explain the clauses in there for you. You know, legal English can be quite verbose for the average person, and so your lawyer will try to interpret the clauses in there for you to understand so that you know what you are entering into before you sign. Your lawyer can also do some form of negotiations for you. So the bottom line is that your lawyer is trying to provide a safe space or conducive space for your property purchase and also mitigate all the risks involved. So hiring a lawyer to acquire property is not unique to Ghana. It is the standard practice everywhere in the world. Even in advanced countries like the US, UK, Australia, it is almost always given. Almost everyone hires a lawyer to acquire property. But in Ghana, the reality is that many people do not hire, or many people do not even consider or bother to hire a legal practitioner or a lawyer to acquire property, mainly because of economic reasons or because of education, public education. You know, legal fees can be quite expensive. Legal fees are often tied to the value of the property. So if the value of your property does not meet a certain threshold, you should even expect lawyers not to show interest in the first place. They will typically not show interest. So it seems as if only the wealthy people, the affluent, buying properties in the affluent neighborhoods like East Legon, cantonments, airports, they are able to hire lawyers to acquire property. And it seems ironical because in such areas, the risks involved are even less. But that is the reality in Ghana. So if for some reason you can't afford the legal services, you can't afford to hire a lawyer, there are some options, safe options you may explore. So these options I'm about to mention are not necessarily substitute for a lawyer. They are only ways you may explore to have a safer space in buying your property. So first of all, we have what we call real estate agents. So real estate agents are professionals who connect buyers and sellers in the property market. So before they list a property for sale, they would have conducted their due diligence to verify the ownership. So what the lawyer might have will do for you, they might have done that already. And so it can be an advantage to buy through their network. Some of these real estate agents are even lawyers, and even if they are not lawyers, they work with lawyers. And so uh, it adds a certain expertise, a level of expertise to the entire process. The real estate agents can also help with the transactions. They understand the property market, so they are able to help with the transactions and the negotiations and all that. So even for those who can afford, you often see them use a lawyer and a real estate agent. Whilst the lawyer takes care of the documentation and all that, the legal issues, the real estate agent takes care of the transactions and the negotiations. So for emphasis, real estate agents are not substitute for lawyers, especially when it comes to the legal issues, drafting of documents and all that. They only can help with the verification issues and the negotiation and transactions. Then we have what we call estate developers. So estate developers are business people who often buy large tracts of land, divide them into plots and sell. Some even build homes to sell. So for estate developers to, because they are running a business, they often have the resources to uh, get legal assistance in terms of acquisition. So by the time you are buying the property from them, it should be in the name of the developer or in the name of their business. And so it becomes safer to buy from a developer. It makes the documentation process simple. So the whole idea is that if you are buying from a developer, they are running a business. And so they are trying to, you become their client. So they try to treat you so that you can recommend them for others. So it becomes safe to buy from them. But even with that, you should be careful because there are some developers who leverage on their reputation as a developer, real estate developer, to sell illegitimate land they do not own for people. They leverage on their reputation that yes, I'm a real estate developer. They will go and sell land that they do not own. So you should still be careful and do your checks. Then in Ghana, majority of our lands are customary lands. And for customary lands, so customary lands are stool lands, skin lands, family lands, like our traditional lands, and they are the majority of our lands here in Ghana. And the law says that an office called a customary land secretariat should be set up to manage those lands. So often these offices have a lawyer prepared indenture templates that they use. So these templates are like they use it for generally for everyone. So for every buyer, they just update it or adjust it to the buyer's details, their name, the size of the land, their address, and all that, and they print it out. These indentures are well written. You see, it's general, so they are well written and they always have the buyer's interests. And so these a lot of people rely on that. In fact, many people who acquire lands in Ghana get these indentures from these customary land secretariats because majority of our lands are customary lands. So after you get the indenture, you sign. So usually your lawyer should be reviewing it, but because you don't have the resources to hire a lawyer, you just sign. Then they take it to the courts to sign an oath of proof and all that, and it is ready for registration. You can take it to the Lands Commission and it is accepted for registration. And as I said, many people rely on that. So all the options I've said are safe ways that people acquire property in Ghana. But even with the right information, some of these due diligence steps to verify ownership and all that, you can do them by yourself. So you can walk to the Lands Commission to conduct a search to verify ownership. You can also go to the courts to conduct a court search to know if there are no litigation issues on your land and all that. Ghana's property market, the real estate market in Ghana, is highly informal because many people do not follow due process, mainly because of economic reasons and also lack of public education. So the due process I'm talking about involves engaging professionals like lawyers or real estate agents, doing the court search I'm talking about, or even registering your land. Many people do not follow these due processes, mainly because of the transaction cost. These processes also comes at a cost. You have to pay a lawyer. You have to the real estate agents. You have to pay for their services and all that. In registering, you have to pay for it. So people shy away from these due processes that may protect them, and so it even increases the risks involved in the property acquisition in Ghana, the property market. So if people follow the due processes laid down, some of these risks will be mitigated, it will subside. So the due processes do not give the unscrupulous people the chance to act in the way they act. Like the multiple sales people do, fraudulent sales and all that. They wouldn't have the chance to do that if people follow the due processes. So we should always endeavor to follow the due processes, engaging professionals in order to create a safe space in our real estate market. So if you found this video helpful, you learned anything from this video, I encourage you to like the video and also share to others, and also subscribe to the channel. And if you have any comments or questions, you can drop them in the comment section. Thank you for watching.